Good morning, everyone. Let's start welcoming you here to Gov School today. We'll get you started here in just a second. And let me get my windows open. My name is Mark, and we're happy to see you here in the new year. When you are in the room today, we do ask that you maintain your mute status unless you have a question. Should come in with that, but if not, just hit that mute, and it will help with the background. We're expecting a full crowd today. Everybody, just a minute. We are also live on YouTube, so welcome to everyone on YouTube. I do not monitor the chat on YouTube, so if you do have a question while you're watching YouTube, leave it there and we'll get back to you after the session. Session today should take about 30 minutes, give or take, depending on the questions we have. Just making sure we got everything ready to go here. Still letting folks in the room, just a minute. This is one of my sessions I really like to do. It's called the RFP, and we're going to spend some time together, about 30 to 45 minutes today, talking about various aspects of the request for proposal and see information there. Beginning of the new year, we get a lot of folks who like to join our session. So just give me just a minute. I've got multiple people in our waiting room. It does fill up, but eventually fill up to capacity. We'll get started. I don't want to rush everybody too much. If you have questions, the chat box, I'm going to go ahead and just open the chat box. It's a great way to meet each other. First of all, maintain your privacy while you're in a room like this, but if you have your capability statement, I always encourage individuals to drop it in there. And if you're thinking about partnering with somebody, that's always a great way to start. And I would ask that you maintain your mute status while you're in the room today. It'll help out. If you do have a question, you can use the chat box, or you can, I'll try to keep up with the chat, but you can also just raise your hand if you have something pressing, and I will be glad to call on you. And I said, just remember that when you're in a private room like this, and it is recorded on YouTube, that everything we do is out there for the world. So know that going into it. Let me open this chat here. And I want to welcome you all to this brand new year. My name is Mark Knowles. I'm one of the founders of Gov Directions. And what we're going to do today is talk about the request for proposal. I've been in this sector, I was looking, I think I've been in the sector now close to 34 years. I've actually won contracts in over 30 states and some 300 over my career, which led us to the founding of Gov Directions and help you with aggregation of the information. We were one of the first to markets. We're entering our 25th year, believe it or not, here in 2023. And we're so glad you put your trust in it to allow us to work with you. Serving now some 112,000 companies worldwide. We're just real proud of that. And I'm going to show you some tools that we've got out there for you to work with. But the very first question I always get when individuals come to work with the government is what is an RFP? What is the request for proposal? And how do I go about learning more about the request for proposal in order to win that project? And so I'm going to walk you through that today and help you understand it a little bit better. I actually teach a class in a graduate school program at one of our major universities, and in that class, I actually teach future procurement officers how to write RFPs, and this is a big part of the project. And so this class is a reversal, and what I'm going to help you understand is how to actually read one. And we're not going to talk about how to respond to. I'm going to give you some tips about how to respond, but really the first part is really understanding what you're looking at. And how to go about making sure you understand it. Some of these documents, some of them are really quick and easy to understand. Others can be, hundreds and hundreds of pages, and you want to make sure you don't miss something when you work with government. And so we're going to spend our time together today talking about that. Gov School is a service of Gov Directions, and we'll put place some. don't want to remove somebody. There we go. If I do accidentally put you on mute or something, it just helps with the background noise. And if you do want to unmute yourself, just raise your hand first, and it will help us with everybody else understanding and getting the opportunity to participate. Sorry, we have a little bit more than I expected today. The room is filling up still. Everybody's coming a little bit late in the new year, so that's good. We'll give them all here in just a few minutes. But GovSchool is a service of GovDirections. We learned early on that it's not just finding the bid opportunity, finding the RFP, but it's also learning how to win that. And we want to make sure that we give you those skills. It is a service that is taken off. As you can see here today, we're now approaching some 40 individuals in the room. Yeah, I think it fills up at 50, so we'll stop at that. If it does fill up, it'll be live on YouTube, and all those who are joining us today on YouTube, that's perfectly fine. And this is recorded immediately after as well. And then we also have a GovDirections GovAdvice. GovAdvice is a micro consulting platform where we actually have individuals who can help you with preparation of response to a proposal and other technical advice you may need, or some services that you need. So make sure you check that out. And so it's basically a 360 effort. We give you the information, we help you find the information, find that bid, and we teach you how to win it, do things yourself. And if you're just busy, like a lot of us are these days, we have GovAdvice for those who need some gig worker status, sort of helping you carry you to that first contract. I would just point out, when you're working with the government, and this is one of my favorite quotes, I like to start with this. This is from Tom Hanks in the movie A League of Their Own. If you haven't seen that movie, it's a great movie to watch for the new year to kind of encourage you. But it's supposed to be a little hard. I'm just going to throw in the word little. It's not quite a hardball, a softball, but if it were easy, everyone would do it. Okay, so you're here today because you've got a drive and you want to do something, and so we want you to have the tools to help you make it successful. But no, going into there's going to be some places to stumble. You're going to stumble along the way, and there's going to be. I actually used this the other day with one of my kids. It's not really how you fall; it's how you get back up. And so make sure you take your time to learn from your mistakes, and you'll grow over time with a government contract. And once you really get it humming, it really is a great place to be. And just about every business needs to be in this marketplace. It's a $6 trillion marketplace this coming year. There's a lot of activity. In fact, I just saw that I think we have over 10,000 active infrastructure projects in planning for local governments through the new Infrastructure Act. And that's on top of 7,000 that have already started. So this coming year is going to be the largest spending period in American history. We planned for it for a while, and somebody does have access. Please be careful when you're typing over. I need to block the access. I apologize about that. Yeah. It should be blocked there. Okay, I have some of these tools here. So if we do have situations I need to get offline, just pop back on here. But please refrain from typing in information on the screen. But just remember, it is supposed to be hard. And I want to point out that starting tomorrow, we have 8 weeks of training with one goal. This is winning. We're going to talk about it real in depth. It's about an hour-long session, and we're going to do it every Wednesday afternoon. It will be recorded in case you missed one. But I've done this series in the past, and it's been very successful. But we're going to walk you through really the getting started in the marketplace. If you have an interest in this, it is complimentary for GovDirections members at the state, local level, or higher. If you don't have access to that, give us a call at 800-492-8523, and we'll be glad to reserve you a seat in that class. It starts tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time, and we want to encourage that. But we're going to help you understand how to get started. This is registrations and making sure you've got information really ready to go in order to win that first contract. We're going to talk about how to sell your capabilities, help governments understand what you're capable of doing, and the importance of the capability statement. We're going to examine the overall marketplace so you know how to go in and seize opportunities that is fit for your company. We're going to show you how to do performance research, price research, to see where you need to be at in terms of how you cost out your business. We're going to help you to understand clearly how to pinpoint, in a $6 trillion marketplace. The number one thing you can do is pinpoint the right opportunity, and don't waste your time pursuing bids, RFPs that you simply don't have a shot at. and we want to show you the ones where you can win, and then you'll have more success, and you'll be a happier person altogether. We're going to help you understand how to respond to the RFPs, and then we're going to talk about licking wounds. We don't all succeed. To win over 300 different projects, I've had to fail at about 3,000 projects. So let's say, that failure part, sometimes frustrating, but if you take it and you learn from it, you do have more success. And we're going to then finish the series with really showing you how to win that first contract. And hopefully by the 8th week, you've got a lead in place where you're winning business. So plan to join us, reach out to us if you want, if you can commit to this series. And as I said, we'll be recording each class along the way. So if you miss one, then it'll be there for you, but it's complementary to our existing members. Today, what we're going to do, we're going to talk about the structure of the request for proposal. And I'm going to walk you through each section and explain its importance. And then we're going to use an actual RFP as an example to identify each section. The RFP overall, it's a way for governments to do business with you. This is something that they are really, it's a way that they can uniformly reach out to you and say, we're interested in working with a company to provide a service or supply, and we want everyone to be able to have equal footing in the response. And so here's what we're asking for. This is it's the standard format to make that announcement. And decision making in government is a complex process, and we have a lot of different agencies around the country. In fact, we monitor at GovDirections some 140,000 different individual companies. Individual agencies that are at the city, county, schools, hospitals, all kinds of different levels of government. So I'm going to show you a graphic that I use sometimes to illustrate that process. And in our presentation, we usually do with companies. You use a puzzle, because it's just like a puzzle box. Once you pick it up, sometimes thousands of pieces. And until you start putting it together, sometimes it just doesn't make sense. That's because the system itself is fragmented. Okay, it's not broken by any sense, but we want in the United States, particularly, and most industrialized, westernized countries, a fragmented system. We want everyone involved in that process. We want to elect local leaders who can make decisions on how we spend our resources efficiently. And we want an active involvement from the private sector when we go to solve problems in our communities. And so each agency, we have the federal government, we have state and local agencies, we have cities and towns, over 3,000 counties, school systems of all kinds, and special districts. We like to use special districts. I have it on the screen here, 38,266 special districts. There's probably over 45,000 special districts now. You're more likely to live in a special district that you don't even know about than you are to live in a city. We all live in counties of some sort, but a special district, these are here for a purpose, like hospital systems, airports, parks, transit systems, almost all set up to provide a particular service in the community. And excuse me, as we go along through time, I'm going to, there we go, be interrupted like a traditional classroom environment. But these agencies, sometimes led by other governments coming together, even quasi-government. We have 20 or 30 businesses coming in to form an industrial park. And then we have the county government sponsoring it with them. So even these are different ways to make decisions in our communities. And you will find that those agencies really have one purpose, and that is to spend money in the community and to make sure that that's done efficiently. And so they have a lot of activity. And so as GovDirections, what we do overall is go out there and pull that information over. There's some 5,000 calls for bids, proposals issued from those different government levels every single day. And when they go out to announce their process of working with you, they use a contracting instrument. Okay, and the request for proposal there, we'll get to it, is just one. So there's also the request for information, request for qualification, source of salt, invitation to quote, invitation to bid, request for bid. Different ways for them to make the announcement in order for them to go out and actually work with you as a private company to provide services, or a lot of different companies. For example, oftentimes we'll issue a request for information or source of salt or request for qualifications just to say we want to know who is able to provide the service or supplies that we're looking for. Okay, and so that's important. is you watch for those, that you don't ignore those, and that you have your capability statement ready to go. Because oftentimes when those three first hit the marketplace, they're making that intent known. And if you don't respond to them, then you may not even hear about the actual final document that's issued for the decision making. In fact, sometimes, they'll go out with requests for information or source of salt, and that will actually lead straight into a contract opportunity with the government based on the low level response back. So I want to make sure you don't miss those, even though you're watching for those RFPs. Invitation to quote, invitation to bid. These are very straightforward, typical documents. So the government knows exactly what they want. They don't really need for you to chime in too often. You understand what they're asking for. All they want to know is what your price is. And so those are also straightforward documents. A lot of times they'll have very quick turnaround times that are required. But you should, when you open that up and you look at that, you understand exactly what they want. And all you need to do most oftentimes, besides making sure you meet all the correct conditions, is just provide the price back to them. And then it leads us to the request for proposal, which is the document I typically respond to. And when I'm doing consulting and type work with governments, I still like to do that. But the RFP, here, a government really, they know in general what they want. They know in general what they're trying to accomplish. But they don't, you're the subject matter expert. So you give them an actual proposal back to help them understand how you can help them solve their issue. And so those are oftentimes the most challenging. They really want your input. They want a lot of things. First thing I want to make sure you understand is they don't necessarily want creativity. They want to make sure you understand what you're talking about, but they don't want you to get too wild with a project request response back to them. And so, all of these here, the piece of advice I always give everyone is to make sure that you are, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Did I say that right? And it's important. Okay, that is the first requirement, because the first person you're really trying to get by is the procurement officer, and they're the ones responsible for making sure that you are a good choice. Because at the end of the day, it's not always about saving money. Whenever they're making this decision, I think probably the number one criteria when making a decision is that you don't get embarrassed. Okay, so if you're a contracting officer, you want to make sure you make the right selection, because the last thing you want to, it's easy to get back and explain, well, they want a little bit more money, or it costs a little bit more than I thought. But if it's very difficult to go back and say, I made a wrong choice.
I got to pay so I don't know.
So they want to make sure that they go in and they really accomplish that objective. Okay. And so you want to make sure that you give them exactly what they need. That's the first test. So what is a request for proposal? It's a solicitation. And I'm gonna say that again, it is a solicitation, because a lot of times I hear from contractors, I've looked at this and, they've already made a decision. This is just all pro forma. They're going out and I don't really have a shot at this. And so why do we even need to look at this? That's just not true. Governments would have a lot of different methods to really go out and hire somebody if they're not looking for a competitive response. And so the first thing you really have to understand is, when they go through the trouble of writing an RFP and they issue that, they really do want responses, and they really do want you to respond to them. Even though they may have lifted it from some of the information from various sources, it's not that it's not going to be an open solicitation. So you have, going into it, you have just as much chance, if you are the good fit for that RFP, as anyone else, to know that going into it. Oftentimes it's made through a bidding process. That means they're looking at cost as a part of it. Oftentimes not. Okay, but it's through a process where they're looking at cost, looking at other things though besides cost in that bidding. They want you to be the most qualified. They want you to be the most able to meet their conditions, such as their timing, that you're able to solve the problems that they have. So when you think of bidding, think it more than just price. It's oftentimes other parts. Okay, and so it's always by an individual agency or a company that's interested in procurement of either a commodity, service, or valuable asset. The true definition. And it's to potential suppliers to submit business proposals. Okay, so whenever they go out there, they want you to submit a proposal back to them. Okay, so that means that you need to have that proposal ready to go. Oftentimes, and you should learn today a couple of things. The first is, never be creative. The second is have a sample RFP written that fits your company well, that you want to respond to, and you're going to, and if you have that in your storage, then you're going to do a better job at the future RFPs. Okay, and then have some standard responses to prepare to get back to them. Nothing complex. When you are, first of all, when you're reading, it should be following the traditional ABCs: accuracy, brevity, and clarity. And whenever you respond back to them, the same thing. Okay, accuracy, brevity, clarity, speak straight to the issues for government. Okay, a typical RFP is going to have some specific parts to it that you're going to watch for. Okay, first, statement of work. Okay, it should be typically a paragraph or two. If it starts going longer than paragraph, maybe they don't really understand what they're looking for, and so it needs to be summarized in a paragraph or two, straightforward. And whenever you read that, it needs to speak to you. Okay, you need to say, "Wow, this is exactly what I do." And if it doesn't, you need to keep reading and read something else. Okay, and go looking for some others, because if that RFP doesn't speak to you in that statement of work, it really is not for your company. Okay, technical specifications. This part, they're going to lay out the technical parts of it. You should be, whenever I read them, the technical specs, it literally is what I do. If it doesn't rhyme with what I'm doing, then once again, move away from it. There's too much opportunity elsewhere. Okay, so the technical specs will be there. Oftentimes, this is part of the statement of work. You would wish that every single RFP opened up had these particular parts clearly defined. They don't. Okay, it's not the way the world works. And so sometimes you have to pull that data out of the various parts here. The technical specs are always there. Schedule. There's going to be two parts to the schedule that you need to watch. The first part is, how do you respond to it? Okay, and what is the timing related to it? The other part is, if you get the contract, what is the schedule of deliverables that you have to provide? And oftentimes that's tied to the list of the deliverables there. So when you do see schedule, make sure you realize there's two parts to it. And the list of deliverables, this is what, this is the pricing part, is it starts helping you understand how to set your price and how to earn your profit. But these are the things the government's actually seeking. The good thing about an RFP is, if it's not on the list of deliverables, you don't need to add a price for it. Okay, or throw in other deliverables that you're going to provide. Okay, give the government exactly what they're looking for. If you get in the door and there's something that needs to change it then. Okay, don't try to change it before you respond to the RFP. Just give them answers back to their deliverables. The other part of that is, don't leave anything unsaid. If you can't provide something, you need to tell them that you can't provide something. That's not going to rule you completely ineligible. For example, some of the work I do compensation consulting for governments. I don't really ever deal with benefits, part of that. And so sometimes they'll combine them together. And so I just tell them up front, I can do this part, but I can't do the other part. I can bring in somebody, a partner. In fact, when I see the deliverables, I start thinking about how I'm going to build my team. Okay, and if I do need to bring in some subcontractors, it helps me understand what I'm going to reply by. But itemize those lists of deliverables. Oftentimes they're numbered, or there's a check off, and you want to check off and respond to each one of those. Okay, the contract terms and conditions. Governments are not subject to change very easily. It's very rare, in fact. So if a contract term is there, you need to be able to meet it, or a condition. If you can't, you don't expect it to change for you. Okay, you got to figure out a way to change around that. If this is also really your profit center, of all things, making sure that you don't go into a contract you can't fulfill. That's the last thing you want to do. First of all, it'll ruin your reputation, but it also will cost you money. Okay, it's always better to price it more competitively, and make sure you're clear that you can provide the services and supplies at the level for the contract and meet all those terms and conditions. Then they go in there and lowball something where you can't do something. Okay, just remember the tips there. The format of proposal. Here is their attempt to make everything uniform. They're going to give you exactly the way they want you to respond back to them. And the first test of whether or not you can follow instructions from the client. Okay, and so make sure when you read that through that you've got everything in order, and you know how to respond back. I mean, these are small things such as double spacing, or signing the bottom of every page of a document. And so it's always important you watch. Excuse me there. A little dry here in Georgia today, so just give me 1 second. As I said, a typical classroom environment. So this is a live session, so apologies here. I'll make sure I'll drink a little bit more water as we go along. And so the formatted proposal really is that first test. Okay, so you're going to make sure you go through there, you mark off everything they need. I've seen clients lose $1 million contract, $2 million contracts because they forgot to sign a page. You don't want to have that happen. Okay, so I always have a cheat sheet on my side whenever I'm walking through an RFP. I'm writing down the requirements to making sure I meet each one of those. And this could be, the length of it. If they say 10 pages, they don't want 11. Okay. So don't go back because those type things are just ways for them to weed out project responses. Okay, qualification experience, we all have it. Okay, it's important that you go ahead and define who you are. Okay, you don't want somebody else defining you. Go ahead and lay that out. What are my qualifications? What are my experience? Governments know that you're new. If you are new, it's okay. Okay, you've done something in the past. They're going to tell you sometimes they want 3 to 5 years. If the longer they're asking for qualifications, if they want 5, 7 years, and the newer you are, then that kind of as a gauge whether or not you're going to have a really good shot. But I would never ever bypass a proposal simply because I haven't won something in the past or I don't have any qualifications just yet that are outlined, particularly in that RFP. Everyone starts somewhere. The first contract I won was in Vermont. I'm from Georgia. I had to go in there. I had to convince them. But I had previous qualifications from other services in the past or another company in the past, and to list those. So this is your opportunity to sell yourself. Don't sell yourself short. There's a reason why you're in business. Okay, the reason why you're responding to them. Now, if you do have solid qualification experience there, where you really watch and give them the ones that are the best fit to them. So if you're working with a county of a particular size or a city of a particular size, and use those as your experience that you give back to them that are more quote closely aligned to them. The same way you would be applying for a job somewhere, but go in confident. This is typically a part of a project, and it cost breakdown part of it, as well as the method of selection or the decision making qualification. These are the things we talk about in the matrix. Qualification is just one part of that. Okay, and so oftentimes you can win over with better format, better response to the proposal in general, better cost, and so forth. So it'll make up for your lack of experience with your existing company. Okay, so going into that, know that they'll lay out their what they're looking for there. In the meantime, go ahead and get that paragraph or two or in place. Have that capability statements. A one-page document is outlined and laid out in a way that the government has requested. These are standardized. It's important that you get a good one that sells your company. Okay, and we have services that can help you with that, but we also have sessions to teach you how to do it yourself. Cost breakdown. Here is a part it's difficult sometimes when you first start. Pricing in the private sector is not like the pricing in the public sector. First thing to remember is oftentimes it's not the decision-making criteria. It's typically set aside in an RFP. An invitation to bid is typically the way it's the primary decision-making criteria. Okay, and so that's important that you understand really the differences. It is very rare that I would give them a cost breakdown in my proposal these days. It's generally sealed separately. Okay, when you do cost, governments don't want you to lose money. They want you to come in and provide a fair price for a fair service. But as I said earlier, they want success for their projects. It's so costly for them to go through a process of selecting you that the last thing they want to do is not select you at the end or make a decision based on the cost of a few dollars. That's not something they're seeking for. So make sure you price it fairly, but where you can be successful. And the good thing about RFPs, they always tell you the evaluation criteria, how they're going to make the decision. And if you know that going into it, you got your heads up, pay attention to it. Don't just ignore that and just, go in there in a whim. Go ahead and have somebody else evaluate. You take your proposal, make your pitch, give 3 or 4 people in your office the opportunity to score you. Whatever they choose, however they score you, and most likely going to be very similar to where the government itself scores you. There is no school really of evaluation. They'll bring in 4 or 5 people within an organization. They're in different fields. They come together at a table. They're given, that same matrix, and then they score you in that process. So it's very similar to what you might do in a random situation. So know that going into that. So with that said, these are the parts that you would find in most RFPs. Now, a lot of them will have other sections. For example, in each state, you're going to have requirements, the legislatures have put in place for you to respond. For example, I think the most common is this: where you're not a communist, in a place, or you don't have investments in Iran. These are things that are always there. These documents should be saved in I use a Google Drive, have it ready to go. And I can pull through to it. The same thing in Georgia over and over again, same thing in South Carolina over and over again, same thing in California over and over again. So have them ready to go. And then some of these are going to require you to have, notary signature. So always give yourself enough time to actually go in and get that signature if required, or additional documentation that you might need. Your financials, your work history, things like this should be there. And as I mentioned earlier, always have a capability statement ready to go. Now, the very first part of winning an RFP is making sure it's the one you wanted to find. Okay, this is Coldplay, by the way. If you're not familiar, listen to a lot of Coldplay during the Christmas break. But here, when you read an RFP, it should really speak to you. I said that earlier. And it should say, yes, we're a good match. Okay. And so pinpointing your listings and pinpointing your information is very important. And so I'm going to show you how to go about doing that with Gov Directions here in just a second. I'm going to pull out a couple of those for you. But if it doesn't speak to you, go ahead and walk away from it. Okay, it's plenty of it. And also remember that work expands so as to fill the time available for completion. We've always heard this Parkinson's law, but if an RFP gives you a month to take to respond to it, don't fire back an answer within a day, okay, or 2. Take the time over the 30 35 days, get it back to them just a couple of days before. There's too much mischief that could potentially happen. Somebody else could see your proposal, but also there's opportunities that are going to exist for change and addendums. And so you don't want to just fire it off and then have to resend something. So take that full amount of time. And it just is, when you start in this business, you should be able to take an RFP, respond to it in a couple of days too. Another complaint I always hear is that, we didn't get enough time. Governments are moving fast on a lot of projects. It may take them a year to do something, and then they'll give you 4 or 5 days to respond to it. That's usually not happens. It's usually about a week to 10 days of some of the fast ones. But you should have your response back set up in such a way that you could fire back an answer to them, and in a quick time frame as well. And so know it's on both times, but take that time that's available for you to respond. And when we go into an actual RFP, some tips. I've talked about some of these as we've looked at it, but read the entire proposal. Okay, pay attention to the areas that we talked about. Set it aside. Okay, so take it, read the entire proposal. If it's 100 pages, you need to read 100 pages. Okay, and then pay attention, mark up on it as best you can, and then set it aside. Think about it. Talk to your colleagues. Make sure it's a good fit. Oftentimes, I see projects initially I think it's a good fit, and then after I read through it and I talk to someone about something and learn a little bit more, maybe I go out and do a little bit of research on the individual agency, and we're just not a good fit. If you don't think you're a good fit, don't pursue it. It won't end in success. And then complete the proposal, and you'll find that it's you'll have a better process. Once you do complete it, let it sit aside another day or so. Then go back and make any final changes to it that you might need. Have somebody to review it. Always have an editor or someone ready to help you with that. Okay. And as I mentioned earlier, the only source of knowledge is experience, is an Einstein quote. So let's go out there and take a look at an RFP, and we'll go over to our website. And just as you know, our primary objective is research for Gov Directions, and we provide research as a service. We've been doing this since 1998. Today, I just want to show you a couple of things on 800-492-8523. if you have any questions, or you can book a time with us if you need to. If you just want just a general demonstration, general conversation, you can choose me here. Okay. And I'll be glad to. If you do want some help with private consulting, you can also book some time here. So those are both options that you might want to have, but just a general 25 minutes, just reach out to us. Always call us. This is more of an appointment process here. You can always call us at any time. Someone should be able to help you. When you come into your member home account at GovDirections, this is the way we help you pinpoint listings, and you should be receiving a daily alert that is based on your account settings. In your account settings, you can go in and you can choose those categories that you're looking for. And this is the first step to pinpointing. Here we have one that's limited right now. We change it every day as we give some demonstration. This is a demonstration account. So if I was to go in here, I do some human resource consulting. Now, you know what you're good at. So you go in there and take a look at it. Choose at least one category. Okay. Cast a wide net when you first start looking at opportunity. It's a better way. Okay. And it's not going to overwhelm you. Okay. But just choose at least one. I'm pretty specific in what I do. It's going to be in one category. I set my preferences. Location. Nowadays, used to, I'd say, I really want to kind of stay in the Southeast, but everything's done online these days. And I'm California. I love to go to California, but I'm not going to have that one. So I can come in here. By default, your location will be all your settings. Okay. It will be everything, nothing chosen, or you can click them all. Okay. But by default, it's everywhere. Okay. If I want to limit myself in an area, then I can. Some of your trades workers, I'm going to show you a better tool that we've upgraded to more recently, where you can map at rfpdelivery.com, and there you can zero in really in your neighborhood projects. Okay, so that's really designed for trades as well as those working more international and global, but also can visually see where projects are located throughout the United States. So once I have my setting there, every single day, I'm going to go in and I'm actually going to be able to see and get a daily alert. It's going to notify me of all previous listings from the previous 24-hour period. And I go in there and I do that by just clicking on view all bids by my preferences. And it should quickly show you that. Okay, right here online. Occasionally it takes a few seconds, but we're just going to pull that. And it's calling through. We maintain a database. There's 5 million records. So if you do need some past history, perhaps we have that data for our members. You just reach out to us on that. And so this is since midnight. And so then I would drop down. Of course, we've been over. I might want to check for the last month because I've been in a Christmassy mood and been doing some traveling and so forth. So I don't want to make sure I don't miss something. Anytime you go in, you can change over time. You can also go in and toggle it by this blue bar. So I can look at my due date, my state, my industry, or my type, and it's going through and pinpointing for me those projects that meet my criteria. And it's going to pull those out. And so pull there. So you can look over time if you need to. Remember that your daily alert are only those projects in the previous 24-hour period. We're not sending the same things over and over again. Okay. So that's one easy way to go in and make sure you do that. Another way I like to do is just kind of get, something like the browse. So if I go into by industry or RFP categories, I also can do that in our member homepage by listing here. We make it easy up here. Or who's winning here, you can get some pricing information if you need to. But if I go in there and actually open up human resource again, then I go look at various projects. And I was looking here earlier, there's a couple of compensation projects. I saw one in my own backyard here. It's a human resources pay study. And when I click through, this due January 23rd, all our information is the same. I can capture the listing because you're going to get a lot of bids going to you every day. So you want to make sure you don't miss something. So go ahead and just capture it right away. And it's view here all those in your saved folder. And that way you can work with those that you're interested in and just the ones that you want to. You can manage them here in your saved folder as long as you like. Okay. So they never expire. And our primary system, it expires at the due date. Here's the city of Albany, Georgia, and South Georgia there. I got some basic information. Sometimes it's a generic name, other times a specific. Okay, it's information will give you competitive intelligence. If I need to see where it's located, I can drop in the mapping there and see where Albany. I know where Albany's at. Great town, South Georgia, good place to be, good people. So I have an interest in it. Okay, and so there I'm at that point. This is something I'm interested in. I leave GovDirections and I go to the original source. And here we are at the Georgia Procurement Registry, which is the source of information. Now, some places will use third-party operations to publish bids. Sometimes they're private, sometimes they're public, always they're free, okay? So you don't need to pay extra. There's no additional cost or expenses. If I have to register in order to gain information, this is a state site that's there. They might be on the local government side as well. It depends on, here's the our contact and details. But at this point, the government is telling you, this is how we want to work with you, okay? Government directions has stepped out of the way. It's our objective is to get you here. And we don't abandon you. So if you get here, you're not familiar with a site like this, and you need some help, you can reach out to us. But if you have a question about the individual project, you need to contact the organization. So here's the case study. I click on that and it downloads, and there we go. I already downloaded it earlier, but it came down. This is a download. Sometimes it's a straight link through, and you just see the RFP directly. So here is the RFP, okay? And now the first thing I gave you earlier, the first step is to read it all the way through, okay? Sometimes I go ahead and print it out. This is only 18 pages, I might do that. But I might want to just browse it first, okay? If it's a 200-page document, I certainly don't want to go print. This is a lot of wasted ink, okay? So I'm going to just scroll through it, maybe keep my Google Drive over here to the side in order to start picking up pieces of information such as, the due date, okay, the address I need to mail it to, if it's going to be required to mail it. Sometimes nowadays it's electronic. If it's electronic, I always want to give myself a little bit more time because it sure is, there's other rules too. If it's something gonna happen, it's gonna happen. Okay. So make sure you give yourself some time to upload. You're not going up there at 4:55 and trying to upload a document that's due at 5 o'clock. That's a bad idea. Just so you know. Okay. I've seen so many folks miss the deadline because they got caught up with a technology issue. And so you step in here. They've got a pre-proposal conference. These are great places to go. My number one tip: you come into a room like this on a pre-proposal conference, most likely it's going to be through a Zoom. You have your capability statement ready to go. Okay, I have to tell my students some of this too. My name is always first last name on the screen. It isn't Mama's Zoom meeting. So you want to be professional. Okay. You want to have your company name after your name. So make sure you have these things ready to go when you go to a pre-proposal conference. Oftentimes you may not, at the end, you may not be the one selected, but you could potentially be a subcontractor, or sometimes you even just want a subcontract. So dropping in that capability statement in the chat box is a great way to get yourself out there. And so nobody's done that today. I had suggested that you might want to do that. It really is a great way to make connections. And so here I want to read through it again. If there's contact data, we'll go ahead and store some of this information. I already decided this is really kind of in my wheelhouse. This is local. It's the area I like to work in. Things that are appealing to me, and these are things I call sometimes the indicators of success. Indicators of success are these are the items that if I see in a document, I am likely to win this project. And you don't know that until time has developed. Okay, so you start recording. What are indicators that I can look for? First, it's local in Georgia. I have a lot of experience in Georgia. Second, could be population statistic. If I bid with this size of the population, I have a better shot, and so forth. You come to know those, start recording those, and you're going to see some patterns over time. Just a great way to do that. And so here we have the instructions to the proposal. Remember the format of proposal. So it came first there. They're telling you exactly what they want you to do. Their line item, okay, 37, they're very specific, okay, 37 different line items. So you need to read through all of these. And at the very end, it's saying you've got to check before you submit. At the last minute, it's up to you to make sure that they don't have any addendums, okay? And you probably have to sign off on a page at the very end. That's another reason why you don't want to send it in too early. But, you have to read through all of these items. I'm already starting to dislike this project a little bit. So if they're that restrictive, I may not be interested. So we'll see. So those are kind of the indicators. So sometimes it's too much, and so that's the reason why I'm not going to pursue it. They're going to give you a background. Oftentimes, if it's a project, it's going to be a long range project. They have to give you some background information first. In my industry, that's the case. Other times, in most industries, it's not. Okay, and so it's really in your own individual area. But in this background, this is also places that I find information that can help me understand how they're going to make the decision. Because My objective is not just to provide the RFP back to them, it's also to make sure that whenever they make the decision, they choose me. And I can do that by looking at, what departments, who's making the decision, a 7-member commission. I'm going to go up there and look at that commission, see if they get along, watching videos about that city government. And these are items that are always available online. And it can oftentimes tell if I really want to work with somebody. If you watch a video when it shows a commission it's fighting all the time, this places you don't necessarily want to be unless you are in reconciliation consulting of some sort. But if you're in something, you're working with them on a particular project, you want to be in communities that also are successful. Don't go in places where it doesn't really fit you. And they're looking at when the last time they did the project, so forth. Details that pick up that will make it interesting. And so you see here, they don't really have a scope of project in this particular one. In the announcement, sometimes that's the case. And so I can read through that and see if it's determined. But this particular one, it's not really a clear section that says scope of work, but it does show you the work required. Okay, so that you're aware. It might be a little bit further along, but they've sort of hidden that. I always teach to put that up front, okay, so that you have that. And so here you'll see some of the breakdown of the information, the submittal requirements, and so forth. I'm going back and forth. But here I can look at this, I can see they've had some breakups before because they're putting all these requirements in there. They want to make sure they're covered. Okay. And so you can kind of pick up on some of that as opposed to maybe a shorter one without some of that. I will point out here in things like insurance, when you read this, if there are particular RFPs you see and you don't have that requirement, you shouldn't just bypass it. Or I wouldn't go out and buy $1 million worth of insurance because I'm thinking about a project that I want to win. That doesn't make any sense. If you win it, then get the insurance. And so what you want to do is I might contact my insurance provider and say, I'm bidding on this project. Can I get this kind of insurance? And if so, can you just give me a letter? And then if I win the project, I'll do business with you. And that's just traditionally satisfactory. And they'll tell you that in the actual document. So know that going into it. And so you don't go out and have unnecessary expenses. Okay. But read through, they have termination provisions. Sometimes it's built around the fact that they don't have funding. Those are ones you need to watch out for, and so know that that's the case when you go in there. A lot of times governments can submit it, they can have an RFP, but it's conditioned on them receiving funding by the decision-making body. And so you should be aware of that. Okay. So that can happen. I've had projects terminate. In fact, projects related to COVID, a lot of them got terminated right away. And it just left, you have a large investment and you kind of have to prepare for that, cost that in. Okay. It should be part of your cost. And small things like putting on the outside, clearly marked City of Albany pay study. I don't want to put City of Albany compensation study. You want to do exactly what they tell you. It's the requirements that they have, and how sometimes they'll say, in marker, they'll tell you the font level, things like this. You got to pick up on that. Okay. How to submit it. What's the schedule? Remember, I talked about the schedule. This is a smaller one. And they want the work done by April 28th. I can just tell you right now, there is no way this project is going to get done by April 28th. Okay. So if they want me to do this by April 28th, they're going to have to pay me twice the price or whoever. So that going into it, your work. They may not realize that at this time, but that's just a tight turnaround. Okay. So going into it, these are things that you're watching out for in order to look at your pricing. Valuation criteria, here it is. The quality of the proposal is 10 points. I mean, how broad is that? I mean, is it, so they just want to make sure just the ability to follow instructions the right way is worth 10 points. Okay. Qualifications of your firm. It's almost, look at the actual breakdown of that. 25 points is qualifications. 10 points is how well you prepare. I mean, that's kind of surprising. So it's only 2.5 times the value for your qualifications. Project understanding, approach, that you actually understand what you're talking about. Well, if you don't understand, then you really can't do the quality proposal. So that's 25 points right there. That's equal to the qualifications of the firm. So just doing a good job going in there, explaining yourself it's going to get you the same level of their qualifications. Past performance, 30 points, and fees for your services, 20 points. So 80% of this proposal decision-making is not based on price. Okay. And so most of us have a good shot when that's the case. Okay? So kind of pick up on some of those key images, but it's 30, 40% is maybe 65% of it is based on your ability to respond in a way that they're satisfied that you know what you're talking about. Okay. And the reason why, because they want to make sure they choose the right company. Is that it's not going to embarrass them when they get in the door. It's not that they can go back and say, hey, I saved us a few dollars. It's that, yeah, we got a quality company who knows what they're talking about. And that's important to them. Okay. How they want to select it, it's going to be a selection committee. And then oftentimes they'll tell you what part of the organization they're in, and how they're going to go about doing that. Okay. And so then you need to do your research. All that's going to be online somewhere. And then they'll have the final parts of it that are very similar. You can't lobby, equal opportunity, and the ownership information. Things like this are very similar on all projects. And you just need to be aware of that. When here's the scope of services, it's sort of buried down in and we're at page 9, we get to the scope. Okay. I would have put this up front. And so here they're showing you what they're actually looking at. And in my work, these are very similar. So I would know those. I'm going to, and I'm also in my response, I'm going to take note of how they list it, because I might go in and I might say something like analyzing is always the first part, and that should be A versus their A. Well, when I respond to them, I'm going to use a process where we talk about their A first, their B second, their C third. Okay. Don't rearrange the information in your standard. And you may have a way that you always do it. You need to redo it for them. Cut and paste different ways. Okay. Make sure you do that. I hope that makes sense. But it's important that you don't make them go search for their answers, because somebody, I guarantee you, the procurement officer, the first person you're trying to get by is going through with a checklist of some sort. And they're not going to be the decision making, but what they want to do is when they pass this along to the person who's actually going to hire you, then they said, yeah, I've checked and they've done everything. Okay. And that's what would you make it easy for them. And as you go through here, they'll say this is the second part of the schedule, and they already know that, so the aggressive timeline. I thought they might, hopefully somebody realizes this is a big project that they do in a very short time frame. So they're going to have, it's probably going to have limited competition and a little bit more expensive. And they already know that going into it. So that just seems to in my head, a radar that something says that, this, I can price a little bit more aggressively in this one. And when I say the words aggressive, more money in my pocket, not less money in my pocket. And so here, when I'm looking at pricing, if projects that I need, if I need a bid low, save about 20% of the mean. If this one here, I would go in at 25% above the projects typically are at. And they want to be limited competition. They will need an aggressive response. So these are the kind of the parts of the pricing research that you need to do. And also the total contract time, this is 6 months. Okay. Always collar your projects. Don't just have things open-ended. So whenever I go my price, they only have 30. Maybe they've told me they're going to make a decision within 30 days or so. I'm going to give them maybe 60 days and say, at that point, you got to come back to me for price. Always collar your price. That became very important last year when prices just escalated. And then now they'll kind of drop back. Okay. So you might need to change your price over time, and you want to make sure that's a fair competition. The other is, contract time, important. If you exceed the contract time, then my pricing could potentially change. Okay. Things like that. So know that going into it. And the dates, and they go back and pay. The technical instructions are always important that you go through and really understand that. You know how to get on Zoom. I know the phone has been ringing off the hook, folks trying to get into this room today. And so you gotta get that sort of the background before you do things. Make sure you have the technical things in place. These like non-collusion, your anti-lobbying, that you have a location, drug police workshop. These are going to be, drug-free workplace. These are certificates that you'll see over and over again. Just have them ready to go. But almost always required you to have some sort of seal or some attestment of some sort of notary. So know that and schedule your timing in place. So the last thing you want to be doing is running around at midnight looking for a notary to sign a document in order to send back. Because these are definitely disqualifying parts of a response. Okay. But there you go, an 18-page RFP that I've shared with you. So, as I mentioned earlier, the best way to learn is to see and do. And so, plow through them, find those, and you'll have more success. What I'm going to do now is stop. I have we've been together today, and I do thank you for joining us. I am going to open up for questions. Our primary objective today was to walk through the structure of an RFP, explain each section, and give you an actual RFP. I feel like we have accomplished that objective. I apologize for the dryness today. It's after the new year, that one of the first sessions I've done if that happens. Any questions today? You can pop these questions into the chat. I'll start there first. Let me get back and look at some of the ones I'm saying. First of all, hello and good morning to everyone. Thank you for coming. We really like what we do at GovDirections, and we want you to be successful in your efforts. And we know that if we help you learn a little bit more, that you're going to be more successful. And so we try to teach the best we can. I'm always open to other questions that you might have in terms of training that you might need. And please make sure you watch. We have other training sessions, for example, how to respond to the RFP, how to go out and actually prepare your capability statement. I use someone who's just a great job with preparing. Her name is Dr. Cynthia Harper. I'll be glad to introduce you to her if you have questions. We also have RFP writers in place. And tomorrow we're going to start our 2023 8 weeks of training, and make sure you check that out. You can see that at govschool.com. You should have seen that in the email that you also have done. Okay, I'm looking through here. Will this be emailed to the members? It is actually, we're on YouTube Live. It'll be available as soon as we get off in our YouTube channel. And we're at YouTube/@GovDirections. Just like I think it's just /GovDirections. But in your account, I'm going to show you really a new tool that we've been using. That some of you are already using very aggressively. If you're not, I want to encourage you. Your account, you have access to it at for every member. It's complimentary as a part of our services. It comes in with your GovDirections membership, state, local, or higher. If you do want federal bids, then you're able to do the RFP delivery. Just think about it as FedEx and without the cost. Okay, coming straight to you, pinpointing your opportunity. In this case here, everything is. If I want to go in and look at human resources, I can search keywords when I'm logged in, and allow me to actually go in and view at various levels. I can see doing different types of searches, a little bit more precise. It is international now. We're globally going global. You can do by PSC code, NAICS codes. I can only see, if I'm only interested maybe in veteran-owned business, I can do that. Okay, and then you can drill down and see in a map view. Okay, see where projects are located. And I can do that. This is just the 54 54 RFPs. And here's that one in Albany. There we go. It's there for me. Okay. And in general, I can go in and see globally RFPs. So we're putting really all these opportunities in your neighborhood, and you can drill down. So if I'm a painter or plumber or custodial staff, and all different kinds of reasons, I might only want to work in Hawaii. It's cold here in Georgia, and dry. But to hear about projects, I can drill into them. If I'm working in South Texas, I can see which projects are available in various areas. Okay, and there's a Jackson, okay, a water meter replacement. That I can limit it just to the projects that I'm interested in. Okay, but global now. And so, and what the good thing about that we learned about Zoom is I can work just about anywhere. And so if I have a specialized skill, here we got some education projects in Madagascar. Okay, almost all of it's going to be online, and they're looking for assistance all the way up to Iceland. To the different ones. I think it's somewhere down there in Madagascar might be a better place to work right now. So there you have that. Okay. Going through video production types of projects, Matthew, we always see those. So make sure you drill in and when you're going through, always take keywords that are of interest to you. Remember that you can use Boolean search at our site. Okay, Boolean search this is really the way we search before Google. Okay, now for those who have been around a little bit of time, but if I don't just go to the front page and do that, if I come in, I can then go in and take a look at keywords. So we'll do video or use those conjunctions. Okay, that's maybe technology and limiting a little bit, not excluding some. Okay, so using those keywords, and you can go in and then you can search those and you can find them. That's important because a lot of times the way we think in terms of titles, they should be self-explanatory. We have a great team. They're crosswalking for you. but it could be a video project as a part of an overall. Maybe we're building a new stadium. We want someone to come in and do the video part in order to explain to the community what we're doing. Okay, so make sure you're not missing out on subcontracting opportunities. Okay, always know that these particular projects will tell you where it's located. I do a global search. So one here's in Ireland, this one here's in Illinois. It'll tell you what the county and state level it is. Okay, what due date, federal. And nowadays we can share directly on Twitter, Facebook. You can go in there, LinkedIn, share it with someone else. Okay, I'm also going to be able to go in my dashboard. I'm going to be able to go in and see various tools that I can use. For example, my save bids, I talked about this earlier. This is the capture folder. You can see those bids that I'm working with. I also can go into Gov School, Gov Advice, and here is that Gov Directions channel. Okay, ready, always there for you right now. Okay, here are the ones I'm saved. If I want to remove it, I can drop it out at any time. These are the projects that I have an interest in. Thank you for saying that about being off the presentation. We very much enjoyed doing this. All of us here at Gov Directions, we want you to be successful. Do you have to purchase required insurance and bonds before you're officially awarded? To answer that question, no, don't do that. A lot of times we already have that insurance. Like I've got the level of insurance that I showed you earlier, but occasionally they want you to go a little bit higher. There, I would just go to my insurance agent who's there, or get a sort of approval letter, and I would insert that. If I don't have it, I would just say I will get this insurance if I have that, and bond. Oftentimes the government itself will help you with that. Okay, and so that'll be spelled out, those rules in every individual contract. But the short answer to that is no, don't go out there and invest too much without winning the contract first. Do you find a shorter and precise answers work better, or longer, more detailed information? You know, there's two schools of thoughts on that. First of all, if you have a complex, patented type of product that you have, you need to really explain that. So I don't want to just give you a global answer for everything, when there are specific reasons why you might want to be very detailed. Okay. Generally, the government itself will be detailed. Okay, but my philosophy is shorter and precise: accuracy, brevity, clarity. Okay, that's the ABCs of technical writing. You're going to, especially if you have a selection committee, you should be able to explain your methodology in a couple of pages at most. They'll give you a limitation on that generally, and so that it's important. All the other details that you're providing, it should be pretty standard. So I don't want you to go into elaborate details on those parts. The most times it's on the technical aspects that you're giving them more information. But brevity is valued. Okay, you can always add more going into it when you get past the procurement officer, when you get into the true decision making part. And that's where you can step in and negotiate pricing and so forth. Because sometimes I look at the RFP and I say they're missing something big, but it's not really my responsibility to tell them until they select me. Okay, and so whenever I respond to what they're asking for, and then when I get in the door, I say, yeah, you really want to do it this way as well, and that helps you build confidence in the individual. Okay, will the 8-week training be in person and online? It's really going to be online. We do have the capability to bring some folks into our Atlanta office. If some folks in Georgia want to do that, would not travel for this. It's typically 1-hour sessions. We find that online training is a little bit more effective these days. And so it will be online 4 p.m. live. If you're not available, it can be available to you on a recorded session. You don't have to attend all of them live. You can attend the ones you need to. We're very flexible here, but all 8 weeks will be recorded for you. Okay. It's just a way to get you in gear, it's not quite coaching, but it helps you a little bit with the coaching. My goal is to get you with a real live contract in place that you're responding to and hopefully winning within the 8 weeks. How many years of experience on average do they require to do the contracts? How many employees do we need? That really depends on your business. Everybody starts somewhere. Initially, I came in, I was a one-person shop, did consulting work, and it met the needs of the individual agency. Other times I have to build a team. Most oftentimes I'm not going to have a lot of employees in place. Government contracting doesn't quite work that way, and there's exceptions to that, but most business is done on an individual one-to-one basis. If you're responding to widgets and a widget request, that's just a little bit different. I have never been asked how many employees we have ever. So it's more about you have the ability to provide the services they're seeking. For example, if I was to bid on a contract in Albany, that might be quite, there's a agency of probably about 100,000 people in the town. And so that might be right at my top of my wheelhouse. Atlanta, I don't have the staffing capacity to do that. I'm not going to bid on Atlanta. Okay. And so know that going into it, stay in your wheelhouse. That's better than worried about it globally. Okay. There's someone who can match to your years of experience, and you'll see that whenever they ask and how much value they place on that. I've never seen an RFP that didn't require, say you have to have qualification experience. It'd be kind of stupid, I would think. But at the same time, I've never seen really one that I potentially would be denied because my company hasn't been in existence for a year. Okay. It's more that I've got 30 years experience doing this kind of work, or you got 10 years, and this is the reason why you started your company. Spin it in a good way to help sell your decision to go out there and become a subject matter expert. That's what they're looking for. This is my first contract, but I have experience for other companies. I led into this one. Is that good for experience? And what should I do about references? If we can all get references, I believe the other thing is governments will call you references. So make sure you get some good ones. Okay. Don't go out there and put in individuals in place you're not going to speak highly of you. But it's more about, once again, confidence that they're hiring someone who can do the job. It's not necessarily that you got this. You could have 10 years of experience going in and out of governments and leaving a bad situation. That's not able to be helpful. It's more about, yes, I've done this. I've got 20 years. I worked with a company for 20 years and I did a really good job, and you can contact them. This is my first contract, but I do have the experience on the ground working. And so take a chance for me. I'm going to discount myself a little bit on pricing, but not too much because, I'm going to give you all my attention, sell it the right way and you will have success. Just to point out that when you first start off, it's hard. Okay. It's hard. Everybody would do this. I said that first when it started, knock on wood, and so learn from your mistakes, but don't redo everything simply because you didn't win a contract. A lot of times there's other reasons for selection that are just way out of your control. And you would never have won the contract. Doesn't matter if you got 20 years experience. So go in there and, fine tune that RFP, but don't always make changes to learn why you weren't selected. Okay. And that's typically in their scoring. That matrix I showed you earlier, every one of those will eventually be ready, will be available. So if you're bidding on state and local governments, you typically have to look in the agendas of a decision-making meeting. That could be the city council, county commission, could be a recorded event of some sort. And there you're able to see where you scored low at. Focus on those aspects of your RFP, okay, and to continue to improve it, and so that will help you. If you just, the other thing is persistence. Gotta go. When we first started, I always laugh about this. We started this service in 1998. We did this. This is really before the web was really, really growing. 6 months, no one even purchased, and so. For the very first time, this is before we could take credit cards online, the very first check bounced. So it was very frustrating. We stuck with it, and here we are today. We're serving some 112,000 members, and you'll see that that's a big part of any process of working with anyone, but especially with the government. You've got to be persistent. And you mentioned subcontracting. Can you please elaborate on how you subcontract? Oftentimes. And in fact, in this room here, some of you know how to win bids, and you know how to win RFPs. And so I'll go in and I go to a meeting and I'm looking around potentially for those who can help me do the work. And so I'll see you in the meeting and then I'll reach out to you. I've had that frequently happen. Other times I approach others. I've been the lead contractor on about half the contracts I've worked with. Okay, the other half I'm a subcontractor. And over time, what you'll find is that I don't even have to bid on contracts. Other people bid or respond, and then they contact you to do the work. Okay. And those are sometimes even more profitable because you don't have that huge investment of time and commitment. There, you're just able to step in there. The best way of subcontracting is to go in and make yourself available. In the old days, what I would do and we're going back to this, but we had pre-proposal conferences in person. You step in and you introduce yourself at the meeting. Whenever they go around and ask people to introduce themselves, they even do this on Zoom. you say, I'm interested in subcontract. And say, right in this particular spot here, I would have said, my name is, I'm with this company. Here's my capability statement. I'm interested in serving as a subcontractor on this project. And then you have the more traditional negotiations of that. Okay. A lot of the federal contracts, there's one, for example, total small business set aside. These contracts require a percentage. Even the very large ones require a percentage of small business. Other parts, they want service disabled, things that you can, certifications that you can get. Don't ever wait for certification, but if you can get them, great. And so that's important. And so use those to help leverage your ability to subcontract. Okay. All solid questions. Any more questions today? I've went over 15 minutes, but I wanted to make sure you had an opportunity to ask any questions that you have. As you come to use our services, know that we're not just a website. Okay, govdirections.com, rfpdelivery.com, govschool, govadvice. Our number is here. We make ourselves available. If you need to request time, you can do just a basic demo. I've never turned anybody away for 20 minutes to book it. If it's available, if you need a specific help with the capability statement, price research, we ask a little bit of a commitment there, but all that's applied to your time, and it's based on how much assistance you really need. And then a private consulting session, if you really are ready to go in RFP, you need somebody to walk you that first one, 45 minutes is available to you. Okay. Is there a place we can look at sample RFP and proposals? The best place to look at sample RFPs is when you come online and you do the search, open them up, and you'll see projects and what they're asking for. The other part, Gov Directions, we have a great section called Who's Winning. When you click here, you also see who's winning geographically, with the ability to drill down on the side to the actual types of contracts. Okay. And when you see this, it's going to give you contract links, RFP links. You should be able to step in and see proposals. Not always, but most often. A lot of times, if I'm working specifically with state and local government, I'll go through the agendas of meetings and I'll see what's been awarded. Okay. And the proposals almost always presented to the city council, county commission, what they were looking for. And you can see those. It's not something that's uncommon. If you need some help with that, reach out to us. The other part, another great website, this is a federal government website, usaspending.gov. And here are all recent awards. Okay. Advanced search, keyword search at the federal government level. And you can really go in there and search by keyword. It's pretty simple. And it's typically simple. You need to practice a little bit, but once you get the hang of it, it's there for you. And you can just type in your filter. You can maybe look at the more recent ones because pricings have went up. And it shows you those prices, the award amounts, and so forth. Okay. Thank you all for coming together with us today. I want you all to have a prosperous new year, and please reach out to us if you have any questions. Thank you.